You still flying that office chair into battle, Major? My dad dropped the joke before I even got through the front door. I hadn't seen him in 8 months, and that was the first thing out of his mouth. Not a hello, not a hug, just a jab. My name's Rachel. I'm 34, Army Air Mission Coordinator stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And every time I come home to Clovis, New Mexico, I get the same damn greeting. He was standing by the sink, beer in hand, wearing the same camo ball cap from the year I enlisted. The irony was lost on him. My mom came around the corner with a towel still in her hand and gave me a quick hug. "You look tired, baby," she said, brushing my hair back with the same worried look she always gave me. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I dropped my duffel by the stairs, boots still dusted from the tarmac. My dad took a sip of beer and leaned back against the counter like he was settling into his role. "So what is it exactly you do these days? Still playing traffic cop in the sky?" I ignored him and walked to the fridge. If I snapped back, it turned into one of those dinners where my mom had to play referee. I wasn't in the mood for a family Cold War over a pot roast, but it stuck. The way he said it, traffic cop. Like the work I do coordinating medevacs, extractions, cargo runs, and yes, sometimes civilian rescues, was a joke. Like I sit behind a desk all day, radio in one hand, coffee in the other, just calling in coordinates like it's nothing. He never understood it. He served in the Marines back in the 80s, infantry. Always talked like the only real work involved boots on the ground. If you weren't carrying a rifle, you weren't doing anything worth talking about. My mom didn't say anything, just stood there, rubbing her hands on the towel, trying not to make eye contact with either of us. She'd seen this dance too many times. I leaned against the fridge and crossed my arms. I could have listed off all the things I'd done in the past 6 months. Coordinated aid drops in 2 countries. Helped relocate a team pinned in by wildfires. Oversaw a full-scale evac after a flood collapsed a dam bridge. But I didn't say any of it. He wouldn't hear it. Not really. "Dinner's at 6, Mom said, breaking the silence. "You want to take a nap or shower first?" I pushed off the fridge and grabbed my duffel. "Shower," I said, walking upstairs. I was halfway through towel drying my hair when my phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Unknown number. Local area code. I picked up. "This is Rachel." "Major Scott," a woman's voice answered, too chipper for a Monday. "This is Jennifer Hall with the Clovis Community Planning Committee. We were wondering if you'd be willing to participate in our upcoming Veterans Appreciation Day next weekend." I blinked at the mirror. "I'm on leave. Not on orders." "Oh, totally understood," she rushed. "It's not an official thing, just a public morale event. The committee wanted to highlight local service members, and we thought your work would be perfect for a feel-good piece." "Feel-good piece," I repeated. "Yes, maybe something visual, like a landing or a brief speech. Something simple. Just to let the town see what you do." I stared at the water dripping off my jaw. There it was. Another chance to smile and wave for a crowd that had no clue what I really did. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. Downstairs, I could hear my dad flipping through the TV channels like he was trying to punish the remote. The guy still used the word clicker. I stepped into my room and shut the door behind me. My boots were still by the dresser, laces untied. My uniform was draped over the back of the chair, and in the corner sat my gear bag, patched, faded, and beat to hell. A public landing. For show? The idea made my skin crawl. But then again, it was a chance. Not just to stand on a stage with a microphone, but to let people see. My father included. Would it be approval? I didn't need that. I didn't need a damn thing from him. But I did want clarity. For him to stop pretending I was a glorified clerk sending out calendar invites from behind a desk. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. Could I stomach the spectacle? Could I stand in front of a crowd smiling while they clapped at something they didn't understand? Then I remembered something one of my team chiefs said a few months back. "If you don't tell your story, someone else will. And they'll screw it up." I picked up my phone again. "Chief Ramos," I said when he answered. "We still on standby for the demo flights next week?" "Yeah, you trying to slot in?" "Yeah. I want a bird dropped at a private location just outside Clovis, my parents' backyard." He laughed. "Seriously?" "Dead serious. Can we make it low profile? Tight crew? Limited media? We can spin it as a hometown rep thing. Give them a real morale booster." "That's what they wanted. Let's do it." "Copy that, Major. I'll set it up. You driving point?" "Yeah, I'll be in the seat." After I hung up, I stared out the window. The backyard hadn't changed since I was a kid. Still had the busted lawn chairs, the fire pit my dad built out of old bricks, the dying pecan tree mom kept trying to save. They were gonna see it, the machine, the job, the pressure. They weren't gonna clap for some speech. I was gonna give them the sound of a Blackhawk tearing through the sky and shaking their windows. I didn't tell anyone, not my mom, not even my best friend from high school who still lived 2 blocks over. I wanted it to hit hard, clean, undeniable. But the doubt crept in anyway. What if it didn't matter? What if he still shrugged it off, said something like, looks cool, but still not real war? I gritted my teeth. That voice in my head, his voice, had been running since I was 17. I pushed past it like I always did. I wasn't doing this for his nod. I was doing it because I was done letting people write my story like it was a brochure at the VA office. I wasn't a desk jockey. I wasn't a mascot. I was mission critical, even when the bullets weren't flying. Downstairs, I heard my dad call my name for dinner. I stood up, grabbed my uniform from the back of the chair, and ran my fingers over the name patch. Let's do this, I muttered, and opened the door. I came down just as Mom was setting the roast on the table. The same oak table we'd had since I was a kid, still scarred from the time I dropped my knife trying to carve my name into it when I was 10. Grab the mashed potatoes, would you? She asked, nodding toward the counter. I set the bowl down next to the green beans and took my seat across from Dad, who already had a beer cracked and waiting. So, he said, leaning back, tell me, what's it like being the most overqualified receptionist in the Army? My jaw tensed. I reached for the rolls. Do you even get to wear the helmet, or is that just for show? Mom shot him a look but said nothing. She never did. She always tried to keep the peace, like biting her tongue was some form of patriotism. I forced a breath through my nose and kept my voice steady. I wear whatever gear the mission requires, he grinned. Oh, right, coordinating. Like one of those airline dispatchers, but with more camouflage. Every word felt like gravel in my teeth. I cut a slice of roast and didn't look up. You know, he continued, piling food onto his plate like he was giving a lecture. When I was in the Corps, we didn't have people calling in and out, setting schedules. We moved. Boots on the dirt, real work. Different kind of war, Dad, I said. Different kind of job, he said, half smirking. Let's not pretend it's the same. I looked at him across the table, and for a second, I wasn't 34. I was 16 again, standing in the driveway, soaked in sweat from an early morning run before school, trying to prove I was tough enough. I used to stack my ROTC drills with double shifts at the hardware store just so I could say I was busy. Every time he brushed me off, I'd just work harder, like sweat was a language he'd eventually understand. But nothing ever clicked. Not the rank. Not the deployments. Not the fact that people trusted me to move crews and equipment through hostile territory without anyone dying. You think I sit around all day in an office chair with a headset sipping coffee? I asked. He shrugged. I don't know, Rachel. You tell me. I pushed my plate forward, appetite gone. My mom finally spoke. She works hard, Tom. She always has. That was all she said. Then she went quiet again, dabbing her mouth with a napkin like nothing happened. I looked down at my hands. I could have told him about the mudslide mission in Honduras, where I had to coordinate 2 Blackhawks around a collapsing bridge with kids still on the damn thing. I could have told him how one missed call would have cost a dozen lives. I could have laid that story out, detail by detail, shoved it right into the middle of that dinner table. But I didn't, because even if I told it, he'd find a way to reduce it. He'd call it logistics, or say it wasn't real danger because I wasn't boots down. So I bit my tongue until it damn near bled. More beans, honey? My mom asked. No thanks. Dad leaned back in his chair. Hey, long as the government keeps paying you to push paper from the sky, more power to ya. I stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor. I've got an early call tomorrow. Doing what? Planning someone's lunch break? He said, chuckling to himself. I didn't respond. I walked straight to the sink, rinsed my plate, and set it on the drying rack. Night, Mom. Night, baby, she said softly, without looking at me. As I climbed the stairs, I could still hear his fork scraping against the plate. I shut my door and leaned against it, breathing through the tightness in my chest. Let him laugh. Let him joke. Tomorrow he'd hear the rotor blades himself. I barely slept that night, just stared at the ceiling, listening to the old fan rattle, thinking about how close it all came to going sideways. Not dinner, not my dad's usual crap. I was thinking about the mission in Northern California, the wildfire evac, the one no one back home even knew about. We were supposed to be third in rotation, standing by for support only. But the fire turned fast. Wind shifted, and suddenly an entire pocket of civilians and aid workers were trapped in a canyon with no exit. The roads were gone. Air support couldn't get in fast enough. I was handed control of the entire aerial extraction plan with less than 10 minutes to coordinate. We didn't have full sat coverage. Half the maps were outdated. The smoke was so thick, we had to run blind triangulation off scattered comms from ground teams screaming for help. Two of the evac zones were shrinking by the second. The heat started throwing off the altimeters. I had 3 birds in the air, 2 on fuel limits, 1 flying with a crew chief who hadn't slept in 20 hours. And still, we pulled every single person out. 74 people, some of them kids, some of them barely able to walk. One woman went into cardiac arrest mid-lift. We rerouted a medevac bird mid-air and got her to a trauma center just in time. I never touched the ground, but I moved every piece. I remember sitting there afterward, still strapped in, headset off, hands shaking. My uniform soaked through with sweat. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe. I just stared at the console, thinking, if I'd screwed up even one call, they'd be dead. We got written up in a Defense Department brief, and my name was listed second under mission leadership. 1 line, no photos, no video, no press. Just a report that ended up on some colonel's desk and probably got filed away before he hit lunch. I didn't tell my parents, didn't mention it in the group chat with my cousins. Nobody back home ever asked what I'd been doing that month, and I didn't volunteer the answer. Because what would I even say? My dad wouldn't get it. He'd ask if there were bullets involved. He'd call it a fancy Uber run. He'd call the people we pulled out panicked civilians. Like that made them less important. And even if I tried to explain the decisions we had to make, the real weight of it, he'd just hear static. That's when I knew I had to go through with the event, not for applause, not to change his mind. But because I couldn't keep pretending that what I did was invisible, that it didn't matter, because it didn't come with a body count. I wanted them, him, to see it, not me, not the face, not the patches on the uniform or the polite PR version. I wanted them to see the damn bird, the noise, the force, the machine we kept in the sky every day without killing anyone. That's what I coordinated. That's what I commanded. The idea of landing in my parents' backyard had started as a half joke between me and Chief Ramos. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was the only way to show the truth. The job didn't need medals to be real. It just needed to be seen. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and texted him. Confirmed for landing. ETA? He replied 2 minutes later. 1100 hours, clean drop. You flying point? Yeah, I'll bring it in myself. I set the phone down and stared out the window. The backyard was dark, quiet. Same patch of grass where I used to pitch tents during summer sleepovers. Same broken fence panel I crashed my bike into when I was 9. Tomorrow, it was gonna be under rotor wash. I didn't know what my dad would say, or if he'd say anything at all. But for once, I wouldn't have to explain a damn thing. I didn't eat breakfast. Couldn't. My stomach felt like it was tied off with rope. My boots hit the porch steps around 10:30, uniform pressed, hair back tight, aviators in my front pocket. My mom was watering the dying pecan tree like she always did, like it was gonna suddenly wake up and forget it was dying in the middle of a drought. You heading out early? She asked, glancing at my uniform. I just nodded. Got something lined up. She looked like she wanted to ask more, but didn't. She never pushed. That was her way. Stand to the side, make room, hope things just fix themselves. I stepped into the yard and pulled my phone from my chest pocket. The text was already waiting. Inbound. 90 seconds. I typed back, copy. Then I stood there and waited. At first, it was just a hum, like distant thunder. Then the rhythm kicked in. Thump, thump, thump. That deep physical sound that grabs your chest before your ears even register it. I could see the windows on the house start to rattle. My dad came out onto the porch, shielding his eyes. What the hell is that? I didn't answer. The trees started to sway. Neighbors stepped out of their houses, phones already up. One guy across the street was standing in his driveway in socks, looking around like he was expecting a damn alien ship to touch down. And then it appeared, low and dark, blades slicing the air like a saw. U-60 Blackhawk, full crew. Tail markings clean, just like we planned. My mom froze mid-step with the hose still running, spraying her own foot. What on earth? She whispered. The Blackhawk slowed to a hover over the yard, rotor wash blasting dirt and grass into the air. My dad stepped back, one hand on the porch rail. His smirk was gone. just a tight line across his face and a furrow forming above his brow. The bird began its descent, slow and steady. The landing skids hit the dirt with a dull thud, sending a blast of air in every direction. The pecan tree leaned like it was bowing to the damn thing. I took one step forward, then another. People were filming now. Neighbors, random folks who had no idea what was happening but knew it was something. My mom had her hand on her chest. My dad hadn't moved an inch. I stopped 5 feet from the aircraft, rotor blades still whining overhead. I turned around to face them, and I saw it, his face, confused, caught off guard. No smart-ass comment, just silence. This was my bus, I wanted to tell him. This was the damn machine I moved through the sky with precision because people's lives depended on it. This was what I coordinated, not a desk, not a joke. A beast that carried men, women, gear, medkits, body bags if needed, whatever the mission called for. I didn't need to say a word. I stepped up to the open door, nodded to the crew chief, and climbed in. Didn't look back. Didn't wait for some last-second reaction. Once inside, I buckled in, put on the headset, and gave the signal. The pilot looked over. "Ready, Major?" "Lift it." The engines roared back to life, and the whole bird shuddered as the skids left the ground. Through the open side door, I caught a glimpse of my dad still standing there. Small now, still, staring like he wasn't sure what just happened. My mom had tears in her eyes. Her hand was still over her mouth. The nose pitched forward, and we climbed fast, the town shrinking beneath us, the neighborhood just another grid of roofs and streets. I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel angry, just steady. For once, I didn't have to explain a damn thing. The bird leveled out once we cleared the town. The thumping settled into that steady rhythm I knew better than my own heartbeat. I leaned back in the jump seat, headset still snug, the rotor wash finally behind us. Dust clung to my boots, my collar, probably my face too. Didn't matter. I wasn't flying to impress anyone. I glanced out the open door, the neighborhood just a blur of rooftops and water towers now. My phone buzzed in my vest pocket. I pulled it out and saw the name, Mom. I hesitated before answering. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice low under the engine noise. "Are you coming back?" she asked, soft but tense, like she didn't know if she should push. "I've got the Capitol event," I said. "They need me at the helipad in 40. "Oh, okay," she paused. "You really weren't going to tell us?" "Would it have mattered?" I asked. She didn't answer. I waited a beat, then added, "He didn't say anything?" "No," she said. He just stood there. Figures. I ended the call before it turned into a therapy session, slipped the phone back into my vest. I didn't need more questions, didn't need the guessing game. Still, the silence bugged me. Not anger, not approval. Just nothing. "What the hell do you do with that?" The crew chief leaned in from across the cabin. "ETA to Capitol is 30 minutes. Ceremonial team's already on site." "Copy," I said. He nodded and turned back to his panel. The hum of the aircraft filled the quiet. I wasn't looking for a hug. I didn't expect some teary speech or a salute, but damn, even a grunt would have told me something. Instead, he just stared like I was a stranger, like I'd flown in from someone else's family. I pressed the back of my head against the wall and closed my eyes. Part of me felt proud. That backyard landing wasn't subtle. It was loud, it was sharp, and it shook the ground. I showed him. For once, I didn't explain. Didn't shrink, didn't laugh off the job to keep the peace, but there was still that knot in my chest, the one I always had after trying to prove something to a man who'd already made up his mind. The vibration from the cabin floor crawled up my legs. Familiar, comforting in a way my dad's silence never was. The crew chief waved a clipboard in my direction. "Ma'am, you're up next. PR rep said they'll have press on site, plus a couple state reps. Be ready." I gave a nod. "Got it." I pulled my gloves tighter and adjusted the strap on my headset. Whatever my dad thought, or didn't, he'd seen the bird land in his yard. And I was still flying. We landed on the Capitol helipad at 11:43, just outside the State House. The second my boots hit the concrete, a rep from the governor's office was already waving me over. "Major Scott, right this way. Press is inside. You'll speak after the awards intro." I nodded and followed her down a narrow hallway, flanked by two aides moving like it was a fire drill. They smelled like aftershave and printer ink. We stepped into the rotunda, and I saw the rows of folding chairs, press badges, shiny shoes. Flags on both sides of the podium, everything polished, everything controlled. The rep handed me a small card. "You can read this if you like. It's a draft statement on your unit's behalf." I didn't even glance at it. I've got my own words. She looked surprised, but nodded. A state rep with a forced smile did a quick intro, something about modern heroes behind the scenes. And then suddenly, it was my name echoing through the dome. The applause came on polite and hollow. I stepped up to the mic. No script, no fluff. Just what happened. We were pulled from support duty in Sector 5 after the fire cut off exit routes to multiple zones. My team coordinated 3 Blackhawks, 6 extractions, and 2 medevac diversions in under 2 hours. No fatalities. No loss of air assets. Everyone made it out. Cameras clicked. People leaned in. I kept going. We were flying through ash so thick we lost visuals. Radio chatter was breaking up. I had to reroute on instinct and last known GPS pings. I had one crew chief running on 20 minutes of sleep. 2 birds were under 30 minutes of fuel. I looked out at the crowd. Most were still. Listening, a few scribbling notes. One guy in the back checked his phone. I never touched the ground. But I moved every person on that evacuation. Every pilot, every bird, every stretcher. That's what I do. I stepped back. No applause this time. Just silence for a beat too long. Then it came, awkward and scattered at first, then growing louder. One official stepped forward and shook my hand. Exceptional work, Major. Truly remarkable. I nodded, stiff. Thank you. A younger reporter caught me near the steps. Major, do you consider your role combat adjacent or strictly operational? I blinked at her. I consider it critical. Lives either get saved or they don't. I'm the one that makes sure they do. She smiled like she got it, but her follow-up killed that idea. Would you say the danger is more psychological than physical then? I didn't answer that one, just moved on. Another guy in a suit handed me a plaque I didn't ask for and read a quote about service from a sheet he probably hadn't even read before today. He smiled for the cameras. I held the plaque and stared straight ahead. Some people in that room saw me, really saw me. Others just saw a uniform and a headline. But near the end of the program, just as they were setting up for the final group photo, I caught eyes with another soldier standing in the back. Older guy, maybe mid-40s, tan uniform. Crows on his collar. He gave me a single nod. That's it. No words. Just the kind of nod that said, yeah, I know what you carry. I nodded back. We didn't need to speak. He knew what it meant to walk into a room full of civilians who thought your job started and ended with a checklist. He knew the mental load, the pressure, the silence that followed big wins, the kind my dad gave me. The rep called out my name again, motioning me toward the final group photo. I stepped forward and took my place. I didn't adjust my stance, didn't fix my sleeves. I stood exactly how I came in, straight, steady, and still thinking about the weight of 74 lives. As soon as the last flash went off and the press started breaking down their tripods, I checked my phone again, 2 missed calls from my mom, 1 from an unknown number, and 1 text from my dad. You free? That was it. No question mark even. I stared at it like it might change. The contact read Dad, plain as ever. Same since I got my first phone at 17. I almost didn't reply. But I typed, where? His answer came back fast. Hilltop Park. I knew the place. Just outside the Capitol, 5 minutes from the rotunda. One of those quiet spots with benches and barely maintained trails where old guys walked their dogs and didn't make eye contact. I let the staff rep know I was heading out on foot, left the plaque behind. When I got to the park, I spotted him right away. Ball cap, windbreaker, hands in the pockets of his jeans. He looked like he always had, like someone too proud to sit still and too stubborn to admit he was waiting. I slowed near the bench, not sitting yet. He glanced up. You gonna hover or land? I almost smiled, almost. I sat down on the far end. We sat in silence. Breeze kicked up. Some guy jogged past with a golden retriever on a leash too short for the dog's excitement. The seconds dragged out like years. I saw the landing, he said finally. I nodded. Figured you did. He scratched the back of his neck. Whole damn house shook. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Another silence, this one tighter. I didn't know it was like that, he muttered. That it was real. It's always been real. I know, He stopped. I guess I didn't want to admit it. I didn't answer. I thought I understood, he said, looking straight ahead now. Military's military. I thought you were behind a desk calling out schedules. You've said that 100 times. Yeah, and I was wrong. I finally looked over at him. Why now? He took a beat. Because watching that thing land in my yard made it real. That's not a desk. That's not a joke. That's a goddamn machine, and you flew it like you've been doing it your whole life. I have. He nodded slowly, like he was chewing on that. Why didn't you ever tell me? I tried, I said. But you already had your version of what I was. He looked down at the gravel. Guess I did. More silence, but this one felt different, less heavy, like the space between us wasn't as wide as it used to be. You remember that time I made you run laps before school? He asked. Which one? I said. You made me run in the rain once. He huffed a small laugh. Thought you'd quit. Yeah? Well, I didn't. I know. Another pause. He pulled something from his pocket, a folded clipping. Not a printed one, a photo of one, screen grabbed from the local station's article on the landing. The image showed the BLACKHAWK with the rotors still slowing, me walking away from it. Blurry, but you could see my name patch. He handed it to me. I don't say things right, he said. Never been good at that. You've been pretty clear. I don't mean the jokes. I mean the part where I'm proud of you. I didn't move. I'm not going to stand on a stage, he said. I'm not going to hug you in front of a camera, but I want you to know. I get it now. What you do. What it costs. I looked down at the picture, then back at him. You don't have to agree with how I do it. I'm not here to agree, he said. I'm here to shut up and listen. That was the first thing he'd said all day that didn't make me bristle. We sat for a while longer. Didn't need to fill the space with anything. After a few minutes, he stood up and brushed his hands off. You flying back out soon? Tomorrow, he nodded. Then I guess I'll let you get ready. He started to walk off but turned just before the path curved. That landing, it was something else. I didn't say anything, but I didn't need to. The next morning, I was back on base by 06, duffel in one hand, coffee in the other. No ceremony, no cameras, just the low hum of early engines and the smell of fuel in the air. Felt good. The hangar doors were already open, sunlight streaking across the floor. My bird sat out on the line, prepped and ready, crew already doing walkarounds. I tossed my bag inside, climbed into the front seat, and strapped in. The headset was still warm. One of the ground crew had just run checks. I didn't need the big speech from my dad. Didn't expect him to chase me down before I left. But for the first time, I didn't carry the usual weight with me. It was still there, just lighter. He'd said enough. Not everything, not perfectly, but enough. I wasn't flying to prove anything today, just doing my job. The crew chief popped his head in. Mission brief says low altitude recon, 15-minute run to drop zone, maybe 20 to hold. You good to fly lead? Yeah, I said. I've got it. He gave me a nod and disappeared back out the side. The pilot slid in beside me, flipping switches. Back at it already, Major? Didn't even unpack, I said. We ran the pre-flight checklist, both of us quiet, focused, just the way I liked it. As we lifted off, the bird steadied into the climb like it had missed me. The vibration under my boots, the hum through the frame, I felt more at home here than anywhere else. We banked left toward the horizon, the terrain below stretching wide and open. I thought about the backyard, the tree, the way my dad just stood there, frozen, like he finally saw what had always been right in front of him. It wasn't a win, not a trophy, just a shift. Like maybe, for the first time, I wasn't chasing his respect. I was just existing in it, quiet and solid. No applause needed. Some people yell their pride, others just nod from a park bench. I'd take it. The headset crackled. Lead, this is 2, following in position. Weather's clear. You want us to take second pass or hold pattern? I pressed the mic. Hold pattern. Let me see what we're working with. Copy that. I adjusted the trim, leaned forward, and scanned the drop zone ahead. New mission. New day. No weight on my back.